Have you ever, upon finishing a commander game, felt like you could have done better? Like there's something nagging you in the back of your mind, but you're not quite sure what it is. If you only knew what it was, you would have been able to win that game. Perhaps you made a mistake during the game, but you're not aware of it. Perhaps you'd like to improve as a player. If so, this video might be for you. Hello. Today I'd like to talk about another advanced EDH topic. The topic of mistakes advanced players make. Now there are some videos already on other channels about mistakes beginners make, but I'd like to talk about mistakes already enfranchised players make all the time and that I've noticed recently. For instance, I've noticed players, even advanced players, don't read all the cards. Maybe they think they know what the cards do. Maybe they think it's not necessary to know what they do. Each and every card on the battlefield, including the lands. And I've seen this happen, for example, with sagas. They just ask the player, somebody plays a saga, for instance, and they ask the player, what does that do? Or they play a creature. What does that do? And the player can say, well, it's just a mana dork. And they don't notice it has a second ability that wins the game. Or, as I was saying with sagas, what does that saga do? Well, it returns a creature to your hand, and they don't notice or they don't ask that it has another chapter. What does it do on the second chapter? What does it do on the third chapter? They will realize until that player's turn comes next and the saga triggers again, and they don't care. And maybe its effect will be game changing. Maybe its effect will change the plans completely. For example, I play Trial of a Time Lord, which is a saga that exiles a creature, right? So an opponent asks, what does that saga do? What does that card that you just played do? Oh, it exiles a creature. I'm going to exile your commander, or I'm going to exile your creature. Okay, sure, they exile it, right? And then on the next turn, they play another creature. And then it comes to my turn, and chapter 2 of the saga activates, and then I exile their creature that they just played. Had they known what chapter 2 was, maybe they wouldn't have played another creature, because that gives me another target to exile. Do they know that on chapter 3 I'm going to exile yet another creature? Do they know that on chapter 4 the creatures will return or might return depending on votes? No, because they didn't bother to read the card. So, one mistake that players make, including advanced players, is they don't read the cards. They want other players to explain the cards to them, and thus they get limited information as to what the card really does. A much different mistake advanced players make is when they have indeed read the card, yet disregard this known information shortly thereafter. Consider the following example. You are playing a Voltron commander, and one of your opponents plays a Butcher of Malakir. You read the card and decide that this is a great threat to your strategy, so you bounce the Butcher of Malakir to your opponent's hand as a temporary measure. The card is no longer a threat, but it is known information in your opponent's hand. And when your combat phase comes along, it would be a mistake to swing in another direction. Say the opponent without any blockers, or with the lowest life, or with the highest life, etc. Your only concern should be to play with the known information that threatens your position. Tapping the wrong lands can leave you without the correct colors you need for your next spell, or without enough mana to follow up. For example, you play an equipment card, but you are 1 mana short for the equip cost. That is a mistake that can be avoided by planning out your turn before you actually commit. This includes planning out combat. Don't forget to take account crackback when attacking. Also, think whether you want to cast spells before or after combat, and whether you need to leave mana open for interaction beforehand. Speaking of leaving mana open, another common mistake advanced players make is not responding in a timely fashion when a game-changing spell is cast. Very often a game is won by a board wipe or a Teferi's protection, or a combo piece that is allowed to resolve without interaction, or a Crater Hoof Behemoth. Leave mana open and be ready to interact with these game-winning cards, either by using a fog effect, a counter spell, or a removal spell in response at the appropriate time. But not being aware of your own mistakes is, perhaps, the gravest mistake of all. Take note of any mistakes you've made and try to become more aware of them the next time. Thanks for watching. Good luck and have fun.